Hi, my name's Katie with Modern Textiles, and today I'm going to show you how to make half square triangles with the 2 at a time method. So I've got 2 squares here. I'm actually going to be sewing up. I'm working on my exploratory quilt pattern. So I've got 2 of my squares for that quilt pattern. And within that pattern, I've got written instructions for 2 at a time, 4 at a time, and 8 at a time half square triangles, as well as 4 at a time flying geese. All written out with full diagrams, very helpful. But I thought I'd break it down into a video in case you like to learn that way a little bit better. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and on one of my squares, I'm just going to go ahead and use my Hera marker and mark a diagonal line. And then that way, when I pair these 2 together, I'll line them up right on top of each other, making sure everything lines up good. And then I'm going to go ahead and just pin to keep them in place. And I will sew a 1/4 inch seam on each side of that line I just drew. So I typically like to keep it a scant 1/4 inch seam just to make sure that I've got enough room for trimming my half square triangles after we're done. All right, now that I have my scant 1/4 inch seams sewn right on either side of that drawn line, I'm going to go ahead and remove these pins. You can see I've got one of my blocks is a little bit bigger. That's all right. I'll take care of that during the trimming process. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my rotary tool. Make sure everything stayed plugged in here. And I'm going to cut right on that drawn line we previously drew. All right. From here, I'm going to take my 2 blocks over to my pressing station, and I'm just going to press them to my darker fabric. That's typically what I always do. And then I'll meet you back here for trimming. All right, now that I have everything pressed to the darker side, I'm going to go ahead and utilize my giant ruler, my 12-inch ruler, and I'm going to trim these down to 10.5 inches. That's my plan. I'm just going to get these up. The first thing, whenever I trim, I always try to trim off the least amount of possible, and then after that I allow for myself to trim quite a bit more. I just want to make sure that my 10.5 inch lines are all marked up and within the block here. And then rotate. And now I'm going to line up this outside that I just trimmed with the 10.5 inch lines, or whatever the blocks you're making there are going to be. Once again, lining up that diagonal at 45 right on my seam. And that way you're left with a perfect square half square triangle. And I'm going to repeat the same thing with this other block, and then we'll be done. All right, and now we have 2 at a time half square triangles. In the next video, I'm going to show you a free tutorial on how to make a quilted tote.